All right, folks, welcome to the runningrestaurants.com podcast, where we bring you the tips, tools, and techniques you need to make your restaurant more profitable and successful. I'm your host, Jamie Oikle, and today we've got a great restaurant tech episode with Dave Dittenber, CEO of BYOD, which stands for Bring Your Own Data. Dave, welcome, man. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, Jamie. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it. Good to be here.
Yeah, so I want to get into his tech because it's really interesting. But before we get there, Dave, longtime operator, several concepts. So tell us about your operator background, where you are geographically, what's going on in your restaurant marketplace.
Yeah, sure. Yes, I've been in operations pretty much all my life. I started in a dish pit in a small town in Michigan, Augrey, Michigan, graduated with 23 people. I think I worked for all three restaurants in the hometown that I grew up in. So that was, between delivering pizzas and washing dishes, that was kind of the start. Just grew to it, fell in love with it, and haven't left it. Right. So went to school to be a doc, got accepted to med school, and then told my parents, "Hey, listen, I think that I want to go back into the restaurant business." So that was 1997. So the moved back from Grand Rapids, where I went to school in Michigan, to Bay City, which we opened our first restaurant there called Old City Hall. Have been on the operations side, since 97. And since then, we're getting ready to open our sixth place in the Great Lakes Bay region. And then we manage a couple other concepts. So the concepts are all American, different concepts, from barbecue to all table service. So yeah, we love being here, still love the industry. It's great.
Well, let me check in with you on, where we are, right? We're sitting January 2022. We've all the restaurant stuff gone through a lot. And Michigan, I believe, probably locked down pretty hard, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. Where are you guys now operationally? What did you go through? What did COVID mean to your place as a sit down place? Probably selling a lot of beer, alcohol, I'm guessing too, as well. What was it like?
Yeah, the first that first week, St. Patrick's Day in Bay City is kind of one of the iconic outdoor festival days for us. Even if it's freezing cold, people come out in droves. And that was the week the shutdown happened, right? So the parade got canceled. My senior management team, we were all sitting in a room on Saturday night. The parade's always on Sunday. We were looking at each other with blank looks on our faces, going, "Hey, what are we going to do?" And that was kind of the start of it. A week later, we kind of, I guess, we're getting some direction, but it was just, all what, like you mentioned, our table service. How do you adapt? What do you do? People talking about things like dine outs, takeouts, which wasn't a huge part of our business.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to adapt really quickly, made some really good tech upgrades early in the process, and did things like handhelds and QR code kind of related items. Really went to that whole concentration on takeout and that sort of thing, which really was not in our realm, and had never really been part of that business before. And then, they did a great job. We were shut down a lot. I mean, probably close to a half of last year for inside service, and then mostly limited. So it was difficult. Then you get reopened. We got shut back down before Christmas. I mean, it was really, it's hard to keep staff, motivated, let alone, in the places, just because there wasn't the inside business. But we adapted quickly. We did some, fun pop-up stuff on anything with takeout. And then once we got back into the summer time where we could get back outside, the city, the state, the municipalities, the associations helped us close down the streets so we could take a lot of that business outside. But really, you had to be quick to adapt. You had to be very flexible. And frankly, you decide on one thing in the morning, and by, that evening, you were probably doing something different, right? So it was, but, my staff and my team really just dug into it. We were able to keep everything open, and then, like I said, get ready to open a new one. So I feel very fortunate. But it was a challenge, man. There was a lot of blank stares in the mirrors at times, but it seemed to be improving. Obviously, everywhere else right now, it's spiking. You can definitely see the decline in business, but at least when we know we have to flip those buttons, we can do that. So that's been good.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing the story there. And the pivot was the story when it first happened. Change, adapt. You're funny. Start the day, but you end up the day with a different plan. And I'm
We
sure
did
I'm
it the
sure that
same day.
yeah, the same day.
That's
I'm
right.
sure that's exactly how it was. But well, what's really interesting about the lesson for operators, and I hope it's one of the few silver lines that came out of it, is we've learned how to make money outside of the restaurant from the takeout delivery operations. And you say you didn't do much before, and you probably looked at yourself when that happened and said, why didn't we do this before? Why didn't we do this before? Like, it was just business, we just left on the table because everything was so easy before. People just came in and we served them. And you're realizing then when that doesn't happen, man, you lost some opportunities. So hopefully, even when you get back full open, or when you did, or when you do again, it's like, man, you don't want to lose that other piece too. Like, now you know how to do that well. You figured out how to deliver stuff to the curb. So hopefully those lessons stick with us. And let's transition with that over to the tech. And so you obviously, it sounds like you did some tech adaptations through this process, and BYOD may have been in the works before that, or it may have been during this time. So give us a story of that, the company, its derivation, how that came about, what you got.
Yeah, the tech company actually was started before that, and again, it was always from the operator point of view. I will tell you that I think a lot of opportunities came through the pandemic from the operations side, but also from the technology side, right? Because the adoption of technology in the industry that used to be very slow, now people were looking for whatever they could, right? And then, kind of to go along with labor shortages and things like that, you had to kind of adapt on that side of it as well. So it was in the works, but I would say, and we were actually scheduled to launch commercially May of 2019 at the NRA show, right? So
Okay.
it was, when you started to look at all that thing, that March through June thing was a big time for us, where we had the brakes got put on, and not by us, but we had to adapt quickly. But the thing was, from an operational point of view, BYOD was always, my technology. At one point, we looked at our platforms within our restaurant, and we had 17 different pieces of IoT and technology, and nothing spoke with one another, right? And so a lot of dashboards. We'd sit down at a P&L meeting 6 or 8 weeks later and talk about what happened, and we didn't. No one could really put those dots together. So the idea was, could we use emerging technology like machine learning and AI, and be able to bring those pieces of technology together, and then come out with real-time decisions that needed to be made, instead of looking at it 6 months, or not 6 months, 6 weeks in the future, right? And so the whole idea is as those technology streams come together, Mabel, our virtual assistant, is letting the operator know, hey, cut this person, send this person home, this needs attention, so and that's really it was something that we developed a lot more, number one, because we had the time, right, to be able to do that as things kind of tapered off a little bit from a business perspective, but also from a development point of view, it allowed us to be able to get time with some restaurants, some franchisees, some people that we could understand a little bit more about their use cases and adapt the technology for that. So it's been another opportunity on the tech side, to be able to have access and really kind of reshape what the business is going to look like in the future.
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind. I mean, one, the fact that you have 5, 6 operations yourself to test the technology on, to have the operators in your stable, right? That they're like, this is a challenge. How do we fix it? Test it. You don't, not like you're launching something out to the public that has to be perfect and has to be ready. Like, you can just throw it out there. Ping pong. Was that part of it?
100%. And we were really lucky to have a number of colleagues in a close circle that we were able to give it to people before we were throwing that out, to the commercial market. And actually, we've now, our commercial launches in April, right? So we're still kind of finishing up a beta phase right now. But yeah, we tested the tech and went through and did some strategic partnerships with other companies to do API integrations and things like that. So all those opportunities, I mean, while you had some of this downtime, we were able to test it in our place and in different models of the business, things like takeout and things that we weren't normally looking at from a development point of view. So it was a really good opportunity for us to test it in our own markets, but also then access people just because of the situation.
Yeah. Now you mentioned Mabel, and if you go to their website, it's BYOD.ai. So BYOD.ai, and if you watch a video, there's a fun video. It's about 2 minutes with Dave going through a scene in the restaurant. But Mabel, and my correlation will be Alexa, right? Everyone knows Alexa.
Yep.
Shoot, it's probably gonna play something in the background. There's one sitting over here anyway. It's like you're talking to it, and it's an AI assistant. Tell us more about that, because people are getting more familiar with talking to, whether it's Hey Siri, Hey Google, Hey Alexa. Hey, in your case, Hey Mabel, what's up?
Yeah, so my co-founder Frank Loix. Frank was I live in Midland. He was a former architect on the data side for Dow Chemical, right? So Frank was big into big system integration. Loved the idea of emerging technologies, whether it was voice, vision, image, And again, when it comes to decision making in anything, you have to be able to bring some of those different mediums in to be able to process, if you will. And that's why a lot of the systems, it's really easy to bring certain types of data in, but it's not very easy to bring other types of systems in. And so Frank wanted to architect a solution that could bring all those together, right, and be able to allow BYOD and Mabel to make the best decisions. And so you hit the nail right on the head with Alexa. Amazon our platforms built on AWS. They're a partner of ours.
Mm-hmm.
And, Alexa is, built on that same platform. So, I'm not going to say it, because if I do, she'll activate and start to talk to me right now, but you would go and do that in the video that's done through the Alexa pod, right? That Mabel is just part of that platform. And so, in the restaurant setting, she not only takes in information, but she can give information back out. So, she's giving feedback to the employees in real time through voice, but then also through text and email, depending on the nature of what level of priority needs to be communicated at the right time. And so it's all a real time interventional type thing, right? So it was built on that same type of idea, which again, that's what the world is using now, right? So restaurants before, something like 40% of restaurants before the pandemic hadn't made a technology upgrade in 7 years. And I thought that was the craziest,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
the craziest stat that I'd heard. And so, now those pieces of technology like Alexa pods, they're commoditized, right? They're easy to use. And those are things that I think from an operational level, they're cheap to implement, right? Versus a lot of this big time system integration where it was just so expensive for operators to use. We wanted to be able to use things like that was easy to access, but also very affordable. And, whether it be an independent or a multi-unit franchisee could invest in hardware that could actually be, relevant. So that was the whole philosophy behind it.
Yeah, right. And it's great because the technology is affordable these days. If you built this system 20 years ago, it would have cost $17 trillion and no one could do it except for the McDonald's or something like that. But now everybody can kind of dig in, and that's what's exciting. So two examples I remember from the video. One was like, hey, pay attention. There's people waving their credit card like they want to pay, like pay attention to them. Another was like, hey, that looks like business is slowing down. You can cut bang, bang, bang from the system. It's making these recommendations, like you said, in real time. So I think that aspect of it to me is the most interesting, that it's happening right now and you can act on it. Is that one of the best features you think? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a differentiator for sure, right? Because we like to say dashboards are dinosaurs, right? Mm-hmm. So if it's a report, somebody has to sit down and generate a report, run a report, interpret a report. Whereas 99% of that information, either it takes skill, experience, what have you, to go in and dig through that to be able to find out what the reasons are, versus, hey, go do this now, and that's what needs to happen, right? So AI, artificial intelligence, I like to call it augmented intelligence, right? So we're working with our people in a training related way. And I like things like automation, don't get me wrong, but I believe augmentation is the realistic way to be able to keep hospitality intact, right? Versus, and just the cost, right? I mean, you mentioned that. Sure, there's a lot of things that you'd love to do, a lot of great ideas that have come out of the pandemic. But I believe that if there's, the moon's aligned, that the data tells somebody to do something and they miss that point and it goes on for an hour, a day, what have you, those errors will still keep adding up into negative effects to the bottom line versus, hey, do this now instead of reading it in a report later. That doesn't seem. So I believe that is the advantage that we have, that real-time intervention.
Yeah. Yeah. You can see that very quickly. They could make a difference. And I want to go back for a second to you said you had 17 pieces of tech. And I do imagine that we do interviews on a whole bunch of spectrums. And one of the things that I remember, one of the things when the third-party deliveries were getting big, and they talked about every single different one had a tablet, and now you're talking about this email platform and that loyalty program and this POS system. It's like, you can imagine the overload of data coming in, and it's important to have, but it's like garbage in, garbage out. If you can't use it, if you can't utilize it, what's the point of it? And I think that is the case where people have a lot of different pieces coming in. They're definitely not utilizing it the way they could. And so this sounds like, I'm just going to use, for lack of a better word, like a hub, right? It all comes in, boom, and now it can all just have one shootout. What did you see when you talked to other clients? Was it similar? What, maybe not 17 pieces, but did they have 7 things, 10 things? What's going on?
The similarity is, obviously you mentioned the point of sale, right? You have everybody. I think the heartbeat of the restaurant data is through the point of sale systems. There's a number of those out there. There's a number that continue to launch. Everybody now seems to be going to digital scheduling, digital checklists, stuff like that. And all those platforms are different. So again, I think the word hub is a great word. We like to use brain, right? That idea of bringing into the brain. And then you have to have a system that can accept that, right? And I think that's where a lot of the integrations are difficult. And we wanted an agnostic system. Like, we don't want to build anything. We want to go out there and, partner with companies like Homebase and Ovation and Marquee and people that, are already building great pieces of equipment, and just take their information and allow it to be able to be fed into BYOD. Then you had kind of the idea when we started this, that a lot of people were still doing a lot of non-digital things. They were still using a lot of paper, things like that, where, to your point, garbage in, garbage out. But on the other side of it, what we saw when we took a lot of those data points were, some of those things were important, right? Like, if you had, 80% of your checklist done and you had X, Y, and Z, that equated into better sales and better customer scores, right? And so there was a number of points that needed to be digitized that just never kind of came together in the brain, if you would. So it was interesting for us to do a lot of that data science correlation beforehand, right? And to know which points that were important when we went in to bring digital sources in, right? And so when you look at labor, obviously you need point of sale. We really like the camera integration, right? And not just from a, somebody's here or, somebody's there, but hey, you mentioned the credit card example. When there's an obvious need for something to be seen, no one's going to sit there and go through a reel of digital video to look for somebody that was on a credit card, right? So once that's gone, that moment's gone, you need to tie that with the moment that's current versus, in the past. So it's something like that we just felt was really underused. And there were so many people that had them in their restaurants. And you don't need new hardware with this either. Our whole thing was, hey, if you have a camera system, we have a really great vendor, Eagle Eye, that you can go in and just get a $250 bridge, right? So it's very minimal. It's agnostic to different types of equipment. And, then you can get that information into a common hub or brain that can actually start working for you versus, just continuing to give you more reports and more data daily.
Yeah, super exciting space that you guys are in. As we start to wrap, I know you're in Michigan. You got a basketball in the background, big sports area. Are you Michigan fan, or what do we got?
Michigan fan, and to my friends on the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Board that I sit on, that I think I'm like, there's 2 Michigan fans to about 30 Michigan State, but yeah, Michigan basketball, Michigan football. Kind of grew up watching all that. Didn't go to school there, which I take a lot of crud for sometimes, but yeah, there's a Michigan helmet over there somewhere, I think, too.
Well, they had a good year. Made the top four there. Got great classic game we were talking about just before we recorded. That snow game against Ohio State. That was a classic. So they had a good season there on the field. So all right, as we close, go ahead and send them to a website or social or anything else where they can find out more information about you guys.
Yeah, again, the website's BYOD.ai. We're on LinkedIn. It's BYOD. And Instagram, and check us out. And there's some spots to communicate with us, and looking for operators that have different use cases, or just want to talk about the marrying of tech and restaurant operations. So yeah, we'd love to engage with some new people.
Good. Appreciate it. Yeah, certainly the way that tech and operations are heading is to get smarter, find points in the system, grabbing profits back. It's a skinny profit margin business, so we got to use tech and everything around our operations to get better. So exciting stuff. Appreciate you, folks. That was Dave Dittenber of BYOD. Make sure to check them out on the web at BYOD.ai. That's BYOD.ai. And for more great restaurant marketing, operations, service, people, and tech tips, be sure to stay tuned to us here at runningrestaurants.com. We'll see you next time. Thanks much, Dave.
Thanks a lot, Jamie.